Hey everyone, I'm David.
And I'm Ro.
And this is Sweetie. And I know what you're thinking. Damn, David, those are some sweet shades. But actually, these were the party favor at my brother's bachelor party. And, you know, they're pretty ridiculous. But when you've got a group of like 20 dudes roaming around all wearing these shades, pretty sweet. But, all right, I'm going to take these off. They're ridiculous. But we're going to do something a little different today, and we're actually going to cover some campground etiquette, you know, like some unwritten rules. And I say it's a little different for us because you guys know that we don't stay in campgrounds very often. We're typically boondocking out in the middle of nowhere. But yeah, today, campground etiquette, unwritten rules.
When you're out camping in a campground, I know that a lot of people really want to go and meet their neighbors, you know, make friends, get to know them, maybe share dinner together, I don't know, share camping stories. We like getting to know new people, but you don't want to take that to an extreme. You want to be really careful because there are some scenarios where you could get not just yourself, but other people kind of in a predicament too. And what I'm talking about is when you see a neighbor of yours first ever pulling into a campsite. Maybe they're backing a trailer in, maybe they're pulling a big Class A in, doesn't really matter. And you want to go and say hi. And I love friendly neighbors, I really do. But if someone is sitting in the driver's seat and they're actively backing up or pulling in, it could be a big safety factor talking to them. You know, it's much, much better and safer to wait until they have finished backing into their site or pulling into their site because of a couple reasons, you know. The main reason is obviously safety. You know, there could be poles, there could be trees, there could be kids, there could be like low-hanging branches that they need to focus on. You know, it might not be just super easy. Maybe they're new to backing up and they'd like to concentrate more, and so they're just sitting there waiting to be done talking to you. And if you're in a campground that's like a one-way campground, a single-lane campground that's just like a loop or something, we've been to a couple of those, if someone is actively backing up, you have to wait. And we've had lines form behind us because we were really new when we got to some of these campgrounds. And we had a nice long line of cars. If someone had been sitting and talking to us as well, those people would have had to wait a lot longer. And another reason that you shouldn't talk to your neighbors as they're actively setting up and backing into their site is because you have no idea how long they've been traveling. We have gotten to some campgrounds before where we were traveling for 12 hours that day, where we got up really early and we had to get somewhere by a certain time, or even as short as like 3 hours. Some people don't like being on the road, like traveling in a vehicle, and after just a couple hours, they're so exhausted. And the last thing they want to do is the last thing they want to happen is them setting up or backing into their site to take longer. Because everybody wants to relax. You know, everybody's going to these campgrounds, to these beautiful places to have fun and relax, you know? So if you're distracting them and they don't get to that relaxation point, it could be really stressful for them. So it's just really courteous to make sure that when you see a new neighbor backing in or pulling in, that you give them the time to finish what they're doing before you go over and say hi.
And then going along with what Ro just said, the next unwritten rule is to not jump in and offer to help someone while they're backing into their site or setting up their rig. And the main reason is because this could be a potential liability for you. You know, if you jump in and you try to help them and something bad happens, like say they back into a tree or, you know, they run something over because of some sort of miscommunication. You know, they don't really know what your signals are. You know, you're like, oh, you got a ton of room, could mean something completely different to the person that is, you know, maneuvering their rig. And yeah, you could get yourself into potential legal or liability problems with that. And also, it might just be frustrating for the person trying to back up because they might not really understand your signals or what you're telling them, as well as, say, if you know you just let them do it themselves, or if it is like a couple, you know, they're probably going to really understand their signals a lot better. Like Ro and I have it like down to a science now. We've got, oh, big stretch. Yeah, we've got like all these little signals that we do that we have figured ourselves, or we figured out with us. We even have some like things that we do at night, like Ro will hold like a headlamp, and she'll just like slowly oscillate it up and down, and I'll see it in my mirror, and that tells me to back up. And then once she like points it straight at the side mirror and starts flashing side to side really fast, that means like emergency stop. So, you know, we've got all these like things worked out. Whereas with a stranger, you know, it could be really confusing and frustrating. So, you know, as much as you want to jump in and be helpful, because, you know, we all really want to help people and just make things easier, but sometimes that might actually make it harder.
Another unspoken rule of approaching somebody at an RV park or a campground is that you really shouldn't ever knock on someone's front door. Now, some of you are probably going to be like, why? Why can't I knock on their door? How else am I supposed to see them? How else am I supposed to get their attention? What if I have a question for them? Those are great questions. And I'm going to give you a solution for all of those. So the reason that you shouldn't really knock on somebody's door, especially and then just stand right there at the front door while you wait for them to open it or come and answer it, is because, you know, RVs are very small. Our front door opens directly into our bathroom, and so if our bathroom door is open and we open our front door, everybody can see right in our bathroom. Maybe I'm doing my makeup or my hair. I don't want someone to see that. That's kind of a private moment for me, you know? Our bathroom is literally, or our bedroom right behind me is right next to our front door. It's right there. And, you know, we have this curtain we could pull, but if we're in here, I don't want the curtain pulled, you know? They can see in the kitchen very easily. You know, parts of our trailer that you wouldn't be able to see if you knocked on someone's front door in a house are now exposed to people. And that can make a lot of people really uncomfortable. And so the best way to get around that is if you have to knock on somebody's door. Let's say, for example, you want to invite your neighbors for dinner, and it's like 2 hours till dinner and you haven't seen them all day. What do? You're probably gonna go knock on their door and invite them to dinner. The best way to do that, though, is as you're approaching, if you can tell that their windows are open, just kind of loudly announce yourself. Be like, hey neighbor, hey, are you guys home? You know, something like that. Don't get too close. You don't want people to think that you're looking in their windows or anything like that. But if you have to knock on the door and step back or step to the side. We've had people approach our trailer, you know, when we're camping in a national forest, you know, forest rangers, they come by and say hello all the time, you know, and they're so incredibly courteous. It's really awesome. And what they do is they'll knock on our front door, and then they'll either walk around to the front of the trailer where they can't see in any of the windows. You know, we have no inkling that they're trying to like peek in and see what we're up to or anything, see if we're home, nothing like that. Or they've stepped back like 20 feet. We have never had like a forest ranger or somebody like that come up to our door and then stand right in front of our door. You know, it can make people really uncomfortable. So the best thing you can do is if you see your neighbor outside and you have to talk to them when they're outside. You know, people are camping. They're probably going to be outside all the time. So that is the best and most courteous thing to do.
The next unwritten rule of campgrounds is to be courteous when you're dumping your black tank. And what I mean by that is if your neighbors are outside, especially like if they're doing something like eating, or if they're like playing a lawn game or something like that, like between your rig and theirs on the side that your, you know, your black and your gray tank dump is on, then you should just wait until they're not outside anymore, they're finished eating, all that stuff, so that they don't have to smell it. And, you know, this is a very easy thing to do. You know, typically it's not like, oh, I have to dump it right now. You know, you can usually wait an hour or so, or dump it in the morning when no one's up yet, or dump it at night after people have gone to bed. And obviously this only pertains to RV parks that have full hookups on site. You know, you've got your sewer hookup as well on site. And a lot of times when we dump our gray tank too, it smells pretty bad. Not nearly as bad as a black tank, but you know, it still has kind of a, like, just a funky, sewagey smell. And so even if you're just dumping your gray tank, it's usually very courteous to wait to dump that as well for when there's no one really nearby your rig. And I know some of you may be thinking, well, but it's in a hose. It's not going to smell. Well, you know, if you're new to RVing, you might think that. But for, you know, seasoned RVers that have dumped their gray and black tanks many a time, there's usually not a very good, like, seal. It usually, like, at a lot of the places we've been, it just sort of, like, sits in there. But even if it does like have the twist on style, it's still not like an airtight seal. And so as it dumps in, it's also like pushing air out as the water's going in, and yeah, you can definitely smell it.
The next unspoken rule is something that I'm sure a lot of people easily get annoyed with, and some other people absentmindedly think that it's no big deal. So I'm not sure where any of you fall on that spectrum, so some of you may think that this isn't a very good rule, but it is to not walk through other people's campsites, especially if they're occupied. And this is for a lot of different reasons. So first of all, you're not paying for that campsite, you're paying for your campsite, and they're paying for their campsite. If they wanted you in there, they would have invited you over. That's the number one reason. The second reason is because you have no idea what somebody is doing in their trailer. You don't know if they have a dog that, if they hear someone walking nearby, they might bark a lot, and now you have caused the dog to start barking. Oh, we know Sweetie does that. If she hears or sees somebody walking nearby, especially if they're close, she just starts going bananas. Oh my gosh. And she's so loud. And then, you know, when she starts barking, she gets other dogs to start barking. And obviously that could have been completely avoided if somebody just didn't walk through the campsite. And then obviously it's also really intrusive. The walls in an RV are really thin, and if someone inside of an RV is having a conversation that they thought was going to be private, and now you're walking by and you can hear them, well, that's just purely intrusive. So, you know, you wouldn't want anybody walking through your campsite, or let's say your front yard or your backyard that you're paying for, that you own. And I understand, you know, campgrounds, those campsites, you don't own them, but you are paying for the right to occupy it for that period of time, not the other people around you. So, you know, there are walkways, there are sidewalks, there are roads that you can walk in. Instead, you never have to cut through somebody else's campsite. It's just way nicer to just go around and give everybody the proper space that they're allowed.
And then this last unwritten rule is just sort of like an extra courtesy on top of everything. And it is that if the quiet hours are like very short, then it's really nice to your neighbors to still remain quiet until like you get later into the morning, or, you know, start to be quiet earlier at the night or in the night. And what I'm talking about is like, we've been some places where the quiet hours are really short, you know, like they don't start until like 11 p.m. and then they end really early in the morning, like 6 a.m. And you know, 6 a.m. to be firing up generators, that's pretty early, and odds are the majority of people are still going to be asleep then. And so if you absolutely don't need to fire a generator up, or, you know, be making a lot of noise for whatever reason outside, it's really nice to just be mindful of your neighbors and be courteous and, you know, keep it down until a little later in the morning. Now, of course, if you absolutely need to fire a generator up or make noise for whatever reason, like you have to, then as long as you are outside of quiet hours, whatever they are, you're within your right to do that. This is just like an extra courtesy. However, like if the quiet hours are pretty restrictive, like we've been some places where quiet hours were from 9 p.m. to 9 a.m. You know, you've got 12 hours of quiet hours, then you're good to go. You know, like as soon as the quiet hours are over, fire the generator up, you're fine. You know, odds are everyone's going to be awake by 9 a.m. and of course they're gonna be or like 9 p.m. you know, a lot of people are probably still gonna be up by then. I know we are. And so, you know, just take into account whether the quiet hours are being restrictive or not, and that's just a really nice extra courtesy to your neighbors, especially if they have like really young kids. Then you know, you probably want to be extra mindful to that, because like if you wake up an infant when they were like during their like sleep time, then you could have just ruined the day for that couple, because now they got to deal with this cranky infant all day that didn't get very much sleep. Or like if there's an elderly couple and you know what, you know, for whatever reason that you should be quiet, you know, that's just really nice. And Ro and I always take into consideration our neighbors when we're going to be firing the generator up, or otherwise just being noisy, maybe rowdy with friends playing some outside games or whatever. And then this might be counterintuitive, but I always feel that it's a lot nicer and more courteous to sort of like extend the quiet hours a little bit if they're not very restrictive at all on the weekends as opposed to like during the week, because typically the people that are out in campgrounds and RV parks on the weekends only, this is like their vacation, and it might be like their only one. So it's really nice to, you know, let them get some quality sleep so that they can go out and have a really nice vacation, be well rested for their adventures. Whereas during the week, that's typically going to be full-timers. And also the RV park isn't going to be as crowded. It's going to be a lot emptier during the week. And so, like, you know, it's probably easy or not as big of a deal if you're making a little more noise, like right when the quiet hours begin or end. Because, yeah, it's going to be mostly full-timers, I would assume, in those RV parks and campgrounds. And they're going to be, you know, this isn't, like I said, they're like only vacation. So it's just not as critical.
So those have been some of the unwritten rules, the unspoken rules of campground etiquette when you're staying in a campground. And just remember, these are all just like ways to be nicer to your neighbors, to prevent accidents just from being like distracting because you're chatting with them, or, you know, saving yourself from liability problems, or just being quieter for your neighbors so that they can enjoy their vacation too. You know, that saying where treat others the way you want to be treated.
Yeah,
you know, be
absolutely.
nice to everybody around you. And that means, you know, that's exactly the same for campgrounds. Sweetie wants everybody to be nice to her.
Oh, Sweetie's nice to
Right.
everybody.
Mwah. But if you guys can think of any, thank you. If you guys can think of any
Sweetie girl.
unspoken campground etiquette type rules that you also follow or that you wish other people would follow too, leave them down below. We'd love to hear what you guys think about this and what things that you guys do to help out your neighbors or be more courteous to your neighbors, or maybe things that you find annoying that people do in campgrounds. I don't know, let me know. We want to hear what you guys have to say. But that's all for this video, and we will catch you guys next time. Bye!
Bye! Sweetie girl!
You
You
say bye.
want to say bye? Yeah, go girl.
Aw.
Mwah.
Good girl.